listening to The Full Circle.
It is the full circle on SAfm, and we kick off with our first conversation looking at the overlooked risks of connecting to public and free Wi Fi. And as convenient as it might be, it is quite a risk indeed. We all know that we like the convenience of perusing our emails and even being on social media while you're out dining at restaurants, traveling through airports, or just wandering around malls. But one has to be aware of the risks that are attached to these open networks, which oftentimes I think we probably underestimate or don't even understand to their full extent as everyday users. And so we thought we'd catch up with Richard Frost, who's the head of technology solutions and consulting at Armata Cyber Security. How are you doing this afternoon, Richard? Richard?
Hi, Bridget. Can you hear me?
I can now. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for asking.
Thank you so much for the time. There's a convenience factor that is attached to us being able to just connect wherever and however one would feel like or wherever one may be. But you were saying that there's also a very big risk that's attached to our use of public Wi-Fi. Maybe we should start there. Like, do we understand the kind of risks that accessing these Wi-Fi networks could pose to us and the data that we walk around with on our phones?
Yeah, so I think the biggest issue that you have with, logging into a Wi-Fi is you don't know if it's a genuine Wi-Fi that's been provided by the establishment that you're at. For example, if you went into a restaurant and they were offering Wi-Fi, have you connected to their Wi-Fi or have you connected to threat actors' Wi-Fi? The risk with the threat actor Wi-Fi is they could be utilizing some method of connecting like a 3G card, but they could be running it through some kind of a program that's analyzing all of your data. To give you an example, even if you were connecting securely through some form of virtual private network tunneling, like a VPN, it could still sniff your credentials and it could actually say your username and password for that is X, Y, and Z. And when you log into your banking, we could actually see your credentials that have been used to log into your banking.
Sure. Okay. I want us to continue the conversation, and I know we've literally just begun, but there's a time bomb of a commercial that's slowly ticking away. So let's take that, and then we'll come back on the other side and we'll continue uninterrupted.
Online. Bridget Masinga on SAfm.
Richard Frost, who's the head of technology solutions and consulting at Armata Cyber Security, is in walking us through a conversation around the risks that are associated with connecting to a public and free Wi-Fi. We literally just begun. If you're jumping into the car and thinking that you've missed something, you haven't really missed much at all. Richard, I actually want to just rewind back to our first question around the risks of these open Wi-Fi networks. You mentioned that even if you're at a restaurant, and I didn't quite catch what you referred to what could be a potential risk, that even if you're at a restaurant and it says restaurant X network and you think it's safe because it's restaurant X, that it could actually be something else disguised as that.
Yeah, 100%. So, you typically have nefarious characters. We refer to them as threat actors. They can create a fake Wi-Fi network within the restaurant using your normal 3G or 5G type of connectivity. But they run it through an application that will actually look at all the traffic. So as you connect to this free Wi-Fi, thinking it's the restaurant's one, it's actually the threat actors, and they can see everything that you're doing.
Sure. Okay. And then when we connect to these threat actors or these compromised Wi-Fi networks, the kind of data that they can then have access to, because a lot of people will say, oh no, they can't access my stuff or my banking or because I've logged out of everything. But realistically, how far deep into your data can they go and what can they collect?
But typically, if they haven't installed some form of malware that can take control of your machine and copy information off, they would be looking only at your internet traffic. So if you were logging into your internet banking from the actual Wi-Fi or from your device using their Wi-Fi, they'll be able to see everything that's going out onto the internet. So if you think of it almost like a traffic camera that's busy monitoring, a vehicle traveling down the freeway, and it's monitoring, this is the color of the car, this is the make of car, it can even get your registration number. The threat actors can do that with your internet traffic.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I mean, it's stuff we don't think about. And I think also, for instance, and this is no plug to them at all. At times, I think, depending on the kind of devices you use, and I talk here about Apple people at times, we walk around thinking we are impenetrable. But is every kind of device and every kind of manufacturer really vulnerable to such things?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's this false sense of security in the world of Apple devices being more secure than Android devices. We're seeing more and more attacks actually happening on Apple-based devices. There was, even in the IT space, there was this perception of Linux being more secure than Windows, and we're starting to see a lot more malware attacking those types of systems. I think threat actors inherently as well, where there's more of a challenge to take control of the device, they'll look harder, right? The devices that are probably, more secure than others will be attacked more frequently because of the challenge.
That makes sense. So, what are the common mistakes that we are making when we're using public Wi-Fi? Personally, I tend to stay away from it because I'm just scared of everything. But what are the mistakes that we generally make?
I think the type of protection that we have on our devices from a third-party anti-malware solution is probably something that we don't take seriously. We normally rely on, whatever comes with the phone. Looking at additional software on the phone, like your Kaspersky mobile protection, is not a bad thing to do. Also, if you're going to go into a restaurant or into a hotel and use the Wi-Fi, double check with the manager exactly the name of the device, as well as what the password is to access it. If the device offers free Wi-Fi with no password, 9 times out of 10 it'll be a fake device, and it's probably a threat actors. I would also recommend with restaurants in particular, on the actual till slip after you've made a purchase, provide the device name and login credentials there, and change it on a daily basis, so it makes your Wi-Fi more secure as well.
And is that something that proprietors should be thinking about? Like, how do they make these services safer for customers? Because we live in a world where connectivity matters, and oftentimes people make decisions around where do I eat, where do I go, based on whether or not they'll be able to have Wi-Fi if they're not fortunate enough to have, phones that run on endless contracted 4G, 5G themselves.
Yeah, I think something that's probably more relevant in South Africa than anywhere else in the world is there's two things that most people think of: free Wi-Fi and a generator.
Yeah.
If there's load shedding and your power goes off at home, you're probably going to run through to your nearest coffee shop, use their free Wi-Fi, and just keep buying a coffee every now and then so they don't throw you out. So from a proprietor's perspective, they obviously want to ensure that the facility they're offering is secure and always on, and that will draw an actual audience to your establishment.
Let's talk a little bit about Bluetooth. Is this something that also poses potential security risk? Because that's one thing that we don't think about. I mean, I certainly don't think about it from a risk perspective.
I think, the Bluetooth is normally turned on and left on because we connect to it in our car, we connect to devices within our home. I know there's areas in certain banks where they have strict rules about, running Bluetooth devices, and some of the IT guys will get clever and they'll actually send you a message via Bluetooth to turn it off, because it is something that can be taken over. I had a good laugh the other day. Strange enough, I actually got a hire car from the airport, and I noted the amount of Bluetooth devices that had been connected to the hire car and then just left there. So they hadn't removed those settings. Same thing even in a hotel, people logging into YouTube with their credentials so they could watch their YouTube. I can now build a social engineering, profile on that user and actually start figuring out what they like. I can start building an understanding of what that user looks like. Just out of interest, I noticed, ironically, on the car that I rented and the hotel I stayed in, that somebody who was at school with me's credentials were on both.
Oh, wow.
That was actually quite interesting. But that is exactly it. We don't clean up after ourselves. We're very willing to give away our information without realizing the impact.
I must admit, renting a car One never thinks, and I think probably 9 out of 10 of our listeners will jump into a car. First thing you ask the rental folks is, hey, help me connect to the Bluetooth. And then when you jump out of a car, you definitely are not thinking about how do you disconnect yourself from the Bluetooth and scrub yourself from the car's history.
Yeah, it's a bit of a problem because, I'm not saying that all car companies would advocate this, but if somebody was to get hold of the system that you were connected to in that car, it could be even the people servicing the car, there's a way of getting the information off the Bluetooth that they can connect to your device the next time. The other issue is a lot of people leave on the auto connect, right? So we walk past the device and it automatically connects.
Yeah.
I've got very strict control over my Bluetooth, and I still get very frustrated because sometimes my wife connects to the car before I do. So yeah, I mean, it's just there's a level of convenience versus a level of safety, and that's what we need to be cognizant of. We want to be enabling things to make our lives more convenient, but at the same time, we don't want to enable too much that we become unsecure.
Absolutely. And then just in our last minute, from our own personal devices, are there things, I mean, you did guide us about, installing maybe independent malware to just make sure that everything is still protected. Is there anything else we should be considering? Also, thinking about the fact that all of our phones are smartphones now, and we have 1,000,001 apps, and oftentimes you'll find people don't lock their apps and don't close their apps, banking apps, WhatsApp apps that they use frequently. Any tips there around how do we safeguard the device and consciously do so?
Yeah, one of the biggest weaknesses I find with mobile devices is often we enable a biometric, and then if the biometric doesn't work, it resort to a PIN. And the PINs are quite easy to get. They're either 4-digit or 5-digit, and the combination and sequences of those are not very strong. Biometric enablement on the phone is probably still the best, and ensure that you've got that ability to auto screen lock after a period of time. There was a feature that was actually quite popular a while back, where you had to be looking at the phone, or otherwise it would automatically lock the screen. Sorry, and that's the feature that I really wish they would bring back. If there's any activity on the device, lock it.
Yes, makes perfect sense. Well, listen, I think you've given us some common sense pointers for us to remember, especially going into the silly season where actually phones become such a weakness for all. Richard Frost, I appreciate the time, Head of Technology Solutions and Consulting at Armata Cyber Security. It's 1:30. Ondela is standing by with the news.